Häagen-Dazs. The name itself conjures up images of luxury and indulgence. For many of a certain generation, it is a quintessential dessert. Walking the ice cream aisle today, you may be forgiven for not giving a second glance. But without the exotic sounding dairy, it's possible we'd still be stuck with plain, boring, and low quality frozen treats. Häagen-Dazs is not a first choice for many Americans today. After all, we are bombarded with dozens of choices on both ends of the price spectrum. With just over 200 stores in the United States, the ice cream brand does not have a dominating presence. It is thought of more as a grocery store ice cream rather than a specialty one, like say Baskin-Robbins. Baskin has nearly 2,500 locations in the US and close to 8,000 worldwide, which makes it the first premium ice cream many Americans ever tasted. And there's always something special about your first. Don't be deceived by the foreign-sounding name. Häagen-Dazs is as American as apple pie. It was the first ultra-premium brand of ice cream sold in the United States, and for many decades, it enjoyed a cult-like following. In fact, it still does in some places. The story of how Häagen-Dazs took America by storm is fascinating. It starts in New York in 1921 with the arrival of 9-year-old Reuben Mattis. Mattis was born in Poland in 1912 to Jewish parents. Tragedy struck at an early age when his father died in the First World War. The little boy and his mother were pushed out of their home country by growing anti-Semitism, departing for New York to live with a relative. Soon after arrival, his mother started an ice cream business, selling ice pops and confection from a horse-drawn carriage. Mattis, still a young boy, joined the family trade. They operated under the brand name Senator Frozen Products. As the years passed, Mattis took over the family business, and for a long time, it was profitable. The 1950s, however, saw the arrival of large mass producers who drove down prices. By this time, Senator Frozen Products was not the small pushcart business it was in the 20s. Mattis ran a small factory that supplied ice cream to supermarkets and groceries in Brooklyn. But by most measures, this was still a small operation. For the most part, he had run his business the same way, but it was becoming clearer by the day that something needed to change if he expected to stay afloat. The situation got especially dicey in late 1958, when a supermarket chain refused to stock his ice cream and returned the freezers Mattis had provided. As a condition to stock his ice cream, supermarkets required him to provide the freezers. The same thing happens today, especially with beverages. Mattis was required to manage and maintain them too. He had spent $200,000 buying them, a figure upwards of $2 million today. To make matters worse, the supermarkets only had them for 2 weeks, which was barely enough time for Mattis to recoup the cost of shipping them there. This had the potential to sink him. The supermarkets replaced his ice cream with a competitor brand by the name of Meadow Gold. He learned that his competition had offered advance rebates, but he saw that for what it really was, an outright bribe. At this point, Mattis realized that there was no way he could possibly compete with the big dairies. He had neither the money to offer advance rebates nor the capacity to start a price war. Pushed to a corner, Mattis needed a new strategy. Since he couldn't compete on price, he wouldn't even try. While every ice cream maker in New York and, frankly, all over America was scratching their heads, finding a way to offer supermarkets the lowest prices, Mattis decided that he would go the other way. He would make a new ice cream that cost 75 cents a pint. It was an idea so out there that his wife Rose, who also served as the company bookkeeper, almost laughed him out of their marriage. For context, the most expensive ice cream in 1959 cost 15 cents a pint. He was proposing a product that would cost 5 times as much. While everyone used stabilizers, artificial flavorers, and colors, Mattis was proposing to do just the opposite. Instead of fake vanilla, what about real vanilla? The best vanilla that money can buy, Madagascan vanilla. As the bookkeeper, his wife Rose knew that they were in deep trouble. There was no harm in trying crazy ideas, and so she eventually got on board the plan. Mattis quickly got to work, experimenting with different strategies to come up with a superior product. He stumbled upon a discovery that is the basis of all premium ice cream today, that low air content is key to a velvety and premium texture. He created an ice cream that had twice the butterfat and half the air of anything on the market. Great on your taste buds, not so much on your waistline. It was creamy and slow to melt. After months of trials, he finally had an ice cream he believed was deserving of the high price tag Americans would soon be paying. And he didn't stop there. As a businessman, Mattis understood that production and distribution was just as key to success as the product itself. This was particularly important for a super premium ice cream because of the nature of the product. Every pint had to reach the customer at an optimum temperature of minus 23 degrees Fahrenheit. For those using the wrong system, that's minus 30 degrees Celsius. You see, regular ice cream thaws and freezes several times on its way to the stores, creating tiny ice crystals that don't do justice to the texture. For the price that he was about to charge, this was simply unacceptable. Instead of relying on third-party distribution warehouses, which only reduced the quality, Mattis had to build his own distribution. It had been more than a year since those Brooklyn supermarkets kicked him out. And now, after months of streamlining and perfecting both the product and the process, Mattis was ready to go. But he had one problem. He still hadn't figured out what to call his gourmet ice cream. From the beginning, Mattis had decided to give his ice cream a Danish-sounding name. He believed the only way it would be a success was if people believed it was an exotic luxury. Scandinavian sophistication was what he was going for. Why Denmark? Well, according to him, it was a salute to how well they had treated Jewish people during the two wars. One day, while sitting at the family kitchen, scratching his head and turning the pages of a Danish dictionary, he spotted a box of Duncan Hines cake mix. And he got his light bulb moment. He took the first letters of Duncan Hines, D and H, turned them around, and started making up and jotting down nonsensical words, until he arrived at what he thought sounded Danish enough: Häagen-Dazs. He knew it the moment he said it out loud. His premium ice cream now had a premium sounding name. But it still lacks something, an umlaut. After all, what sounds more exotic than European characters Americans can't pronounce? At the time, Mattis did not know that the Danish language contains no umlauts, but that didn't matter. In late 1960, Häagen-Dazs went on sale in the Big Apple. Mattis sent salespeople to hand out samples on the street and convinced gourmet delis to stock it. The price was jaw-dropping, but it was unlike anything New Yorkers had ever tasted. Soon it was like a religion amongst rich New Yorkers, almost entirely marketed by word of mouth. The women of New York often gathered in scoop shops for afternoon Häagen-Dazs treats. It gained a cult following with all sorts of origin stories, none of which featured America, let alone the Bronx. Mattis's masterstroke of giving it a foreign-sounding name had worked beyond his wildest dreams. His network of refrigerated trucks moved the product from factory to delis regularly, and customers became accustomed to the high and consistent quality. The operation grew rather quickly, and in 1973, Häagen-Dazs achieved nationwide distribution. Around this time, Mattis's daughter, Doris Hurley, got the ice cream bug. She decided to go all in on the family business, and in 1976, opened the first Häagen-Dazs specialty shop on Montague Street, Brooklyn. It was a big hit from day one, and soon she would open a second location in Manhattan, another big hit. This being the golden age of franchising, Doris decided to give it a go. Well, she had to first convince her very reluctant father. Mattis was very opposed to the idea, his big problem being quality control. But his daughter was actually delivering. She was reporting incredible numbers. With just the 2 locations in New York, Doris was bringing in sales of $50,000 a week. That was almost unheard of. So successful were the locations that nearby grocery stores also saw a jump in their own sales. Eventually, her father gave her the green light to franchise and open more stores. Within no time, dozens of Häagen-Dazs shops popped up in New York and eventually nationwide. The reception was the same everywhere. Soon, sales reached $30 million with no peak in sight. Häagen-Dazs went close to 20 years without a competitor in the ultra-premium ice cream category. But when Doris started expanding the franchise nationwide, she convinced her father to stop selling the ice cream in bulk to distributors who sold it to regular scoop shops. She argued that Häagen-Dazs was a luxury product, and rugged scoop shops were only cheapening the brand. Once again, Mattis could not say no to his daughter. That move opened the door to their first competitor, in the name of New York ice cream distributor Richard Smith. Richard had been one of Mattis's oldest and most loyal customers. He would buy in bulk from the Häagen-Dazs factory before distributing it to scoop shops all around the city. When Mattis discontinued the sales, Richard took that personally and promised to create his own ultra-premium ice cream brand. He teamed up with a New York chef and created a direct rival to Häagen-Dazs. And not just that, but Smith copied every aspect of Häagen-Dazs, even down to the Scandinavian team. Instead of a Danish name, he gave it an almost Swedish-sounding name, Frusenglaja, It means frozen delight. You didn't need a trained eye to realize that this was a ripoff. Mattis was livid, but Smith didn't care. Fruzenglade launched in April of 1980, and within days, Häagen-Dazs filed a lawsuit. They argued that Mr. Smith had violated their unique Scandinavian theme. It was a long-shot lawsuit, and the judge did not mince any words ruling against Häagen-Dazs. It was crazy to think that they could trademark a Scandinavian theme. Smith got his victory and went on overdrive. He wasn't playing around. Within 2 years, Fruzenglade had achieved nationwide distribution and was selling 30 million pints annually. In 1985, just 5 years after launch, Richard Smith sold Fruzenglade to Kraft Foods for an undisclosed amount. Today, Fruzenglade is no longer in the market, but Häagen-Dazs still is. It has had some crazy staying power. Smith's 1980s courtroom victory inspired countless imitators, many with European-sounding names, like Alpenzauber, and more that I won't even attempt to pronounce. Häagen-Dazs has driven most of them out of the market, but one has proven to be especially stubborn. Its name? Ben & Jerry's. Just as premium, but with a name that people can actually pronounce. Over the years, Häagen-Dazs has changed owners several times. First in July 1983, when Mattis sold the company to conglomerates Pillsbury for $80 million. In 1989, Häagen-Dazs' parent company, Pillsbury, was under new owners, the British company Grand Metropolitan, now defunct. They had great ambitions to take Häagen-Dazs global, starting with Europe and East Asia. Soon, the rest of the world would be awed by the ice cream created decades ago to fight the big dairies. By the 80s, Häagen-Dazs owned over 70% of the gourmet ice cream market share. But today, the story's a bit different. Ben & Jerry's is actually king, but Häagen-Dazs started it all. In 2022, Häagen-Dazs reported sales of $785 million in the US, second to Ben & Jerry's that sold $910 million worth of ice cream. However, when it comes to global sales, Häagen-Dazs is still ahead. Today, Häagen-Dazs in America is owned by Froneri, a joint venture between Nestlé and French private equity firm PAI Partners. General Mills manages and operates the business outside of North America. Oh, and remember that first Häagen-Dazs shop that was opened by Mattis's daughter in Brooklyn? Well, it's still around to this very day. What a ride it has been for Häagen-Dazs.